All right. Cool. I told him like 650, so.
Okay, yeah.
We have Ed next week, and then we may have a special guest the week after that too, so.
Oh, cool.
Keeping it rolling. Yep.
Yeah. There we go. Twitch.
Hey, old.
Your repurposed freighter drifts through space. As you stare out at the star-flecked void, another ship comes in. Wait, is this sci-fi? I thought we agreed on a World War II campaign. Oh. Did we? That's cool. I can pivot. The smell of smoke curdles in your nostrils. Hold up, I thought we were prepping for a zombie apocalypse campaign. Alright, here's what we're doing. It's the year 3700. Humanity's elite fled to other planets long ago, taking with them all forms of advanced technology. Earth survivors scrape by with historic tools as weird phenomena plague abandoned nuclear sites. Witnesses report seeing glowing lights and the dead rising from their graves. And amidst the chaos, 3 strangers will meet in a dim bar. A veteran zombie slayer, a disgraced general out for revenge, and a space mercenary sent to investigate the power plants. Now describe your characters. Woo. How did you do that? I have the right tools for the job.
Hey, Courtney. This is a great interview tonight. This is Doug Niles, who has done a lot of D&D stuff. Lots and lots of great things. For Greyhawk, for Forgotten Realms, for Dragonlance, all of them. In fact, I found out some stuff I didn't even know when I was doing the research, which has really surprised me, which I was really cool. I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. So, some really neat things. See if we can find, oh my gosh. What happens when you mix all your buttons up? Hey, Mike.
A story once spoken is ageless.
Awesome. Well,
The dungeon imagined.
Doug's not on yet. He
without
said
end.
right at 6:50, I think, was the
Curious are
time. So we're
ones
good.
most courageous.
We are good.
The tree that endures has to bend. From stillness.
Plus
the
lots of good
mad
announcements
wave is
coming.
Stirring. From countless voices, the castle takes shape. Zagig will test the enduring. Those unlucky will never escape.
Hey, Brett. Oh my gosh, where do I go next? Hey, Death. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, they're good. He did a good job with them. So usually, yeah, they're short, so I run it twice. So really, he's stepping it up too. So it's good, definitely. What's up, Michael? Yep. She's really got some great new stuff out, so we'll be seeing what direction we go with that in the future. Oh, let me set that up, man. I didn't do that yet. I knew there was something. One of them's, of course, against the Cult of the Reptile God because it's Doug on and I have it, so we got to do his, of course, one of his. That's good. Well, wrong button. Oh, God, where is it? Too much multitasking. Here comes Doug. Hello.
Oh, hi.
We got our ad.
Hello.
We got our beginnings coming up here. So
Yeah, Jay's picture will be showing it.
Yes, yes.
The audio is live, but Jay is showing.
we're live on Twitch. So
Yeah,
just
on
waiting
his, you can see what the Twitch audience will see on Jay, so he will.
How are
he
you?
will be there. So good to see you.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm trying to learn a little bit about Twitch. I'm a 20th century man living in the 21st century years. I had this sense it was kind of like YouTube, but my son-in-law was telling me it's also like people who are watching can make comments and ask questions.
Oh yeah, it's live. We're live. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it's a live stream. It's a bit like TV on the internet
Yeah.
too.
The vid gets ported to YouTube afterwards, so it'll be on YouTube as well. I have a mirror, so all vids go to YouTube. So yeah, it'll be there for people to see too after the fact. So, but it only stays on Twitch for 90 days, but it's live. So we'll have fun, do some giveaways, and we're gonna. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this discussion. So plus I'll have a surprise or two around the halfway mark for you.
Okay.
Some specific questions there. So, all right, we're early, but we're gonna come on live. Why not?
Okay.
Yeah, it's we're live, but I'm saying we're gonna come on and come on a few minutes early here. So wait till the music's done.
So talk what's coming.
Talking, yes.
Yep.
Hope everyone out there as well as people are rolling in still.
All right.
Here we go.
Now it's my phone.
That's okay.
Oh yeah,
Trust me,
that's a good idea.
mine rings all the
Check
time.
it.
Yeah. Mine always goes off. So good evening, everyone. I know people are coming in still as we're like 7 minutes early, but who cares, right? Early's good sometimes. I'm J.K. Lord Gazumba, along with the legendary Anna B. Meyer, and tonight
Hello.
got a very, very special guest, one Doug Niles, who's done. When you dig in, wait till you see the stuff that Doug has done over the years. It's impressive. And welcome.
Well, thanks, Jay.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. When I did some, I tried to deep dive into everything, and This is what I'm most shocked about. We'll get to it. This is you.
Battle system, yes.
I did not know that. After all,
Both versions.
that that is awesome. Yeah.
That was a real nice assignment. I mean the chance to do as maybe I don't know. Well, actually, we haven't really talked much, you and I, but
Yeah.
I came into this. My original interest was in tactical and strategic historical military board games.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I love D&D, and I basically got into the game design business by designing, a campaign and running it as a dungeon master, and so it became my very passionate hobby. But in the background, I always had this fascination with simulating military
Yeah.
operations. And Battle System, of course, took Dungeons and Dragons and gave you the chance to make an army and resolve that on a tabletop, just about like you'd resolve a role playing encounter.
Absolutely. And then you did this one too, the miniatures system afterwards. Which if you've ever seen my tables, I mean, we got miniatures everywhere. That's where miniatures and terrain based. So I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that. So like, it's really cool to go through all this stuff. But we want to start from the beginning and work our way up here and just talk, if you don't mind, about just where you came from and how you got involved. You started out as a school teacher, I think, right? Was that?
Yes, professionally. I mean, I had done some Avalon Hill war games with my brother as a teenager before even going to college. So I had that in the background as something that I.
Which one was your favorite box set?
Well, we only did Luftwaffe and France 1940.
Okay.
And I liked Luftwaffe more.
Luftwaffe is good. Is Avalon Hill Rise and Decline of the Third Reich?
Yes,
it's on my back. It's on my box set right there. Yeah.
Actually, that was a straight inspiration for a game I had a chance to do called World War II European Theater of Operations, and my colleague of mine, Bruce Hurd, who's pretty well in the industry,
absolutely,
introduced me to Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, and he kicked my butt when we played it. But it was really interesting.
That game takes forever.
But mine takes 5 times as long.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh! Oh, that's cool.
But that's kind of like the board gaming side of
that's cool.
my career. But it really was in fact, it wasn't even in existence when I got started. I mean, if you want the origin story, actually, I think it's kind of a unique one.
Yeah, please.
So I was teaching high school in a little town called Clinton, Wisconsin. I was a speech and drama teacher, and I had heard through some people I did some community theater with about this Dungeons and Dragons game, but I didn't know anything about it. I had never heard of it or seen anything like that. And so one day I had one of my sophomore students, her name was Heidi Gygax, gave me a pass to say she's excused from school the following day to be interviewed by People magazine. And I was like, what? This is a little farm town in Wisconsin, and People and she said, well, my dad invented this game. And so then I said, oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
And so the day after her interview, she came back. She brought me a copy of the basic set. It was the blue
box
set. This would have been about 1979.
Oh, 79. So
yeah.
Okay.
And I was sucked in. I think she gave me the game on a Wednesday, and by Friday night I had lined up my friends. We were all basically adults without kids. So we had, early 20s, mid 20s of our ages. And they came over and we started a campaign that ran basically until I got hired in 1982. So it's kind of ironic that once I started doing dungeon adventure for a job, I stopped doing it as a hobby. But we had a fun time. And I basically, it untapped this urge that I'd always had. I wanted to be a writer, and I believed when I was in high school that was where my destiny lay. But as I got to college, I was like, oh, there's get out of college with a degree in English, so I got a degree in teaching, which I knew I hoped there'd be a job at the end of it, and turned out to be a practical decision.
Right.
And then as it happened, once our D&D campaign got going, my wife got me for a birthday present an electric typewriter. And I always had a little portable, I took notes and stuff like that. But I got this electric typewriter, and I started writing a novel, which never got published. It evolved into Dark Walker on Moonshade, but it was just it was not really ready for prime time. But I just was typing and typing and typing away. And when the summer vacation came around, I just wrote, dozens of pages every day and had stacked up quite a manuscript by the end of summer. And that would have been the summer of 1981. And still running the game, my campaign and stuff. And then I had another friend who he'd been exposed to D&D in my campaign. We lived in Delavan, Wisconsin, which was really only 15 minutes from Lake Geneva. So we were pretty close to the center of the universe when it came to Dungeons and Dragons. And so he got hired by Dragon Magazine as an editor. Gali Sanchez was his name. And he called me up, and I think it was about September when school year had just started. And he said, TSR is hiring game designers. You want to throw your hat into the ring? And at first it was like a crazy idea. I thought, I was going to basically spend, 35 years teaching and retire and follow that career path. But I started to think about it and ended up going through 5 interviews, starting, at the various, lower levels of personnel. I never did mention to anyone that I knew Gary or that I had, had his daughter in class, but,
wow.
It was, and then I did when I got to the more serious interviews. My second to last one was with Dave Sutherland and Harold Johnson.
Okay.
I had this 350-page manuscript, and I was able to take it in and drop it down on the desk and say, I wrote this over the summer, and I think that convinced them that at least I could string a few sentences together, and they liked enough of the game design stuff I've done to give me a shot. And as probably one of the very few people who took a cut in pay to go from teaching to
I'll say absolutely.
But fortunately, I turned out to be fairly productive, and I was able to start making a better living even by the end of the first year that I had been doing it. So I didn't really ever look back.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
You went with your gut and your passion, it sounds like, which is a lot of people won't do.
Well, right. It was, and my wife was encouraging, and my job was I liked it. I don't want to say anything bad about that, but it didn't seem like it was going to be much of a, there wasn't really much of a prospect of doing anything but being a teacher, and I didn't really want to be, an administrator or anything like that. So, yeah, it was a real chance to expand my horizons, and
So you were at TSR from like 81 through the heydays of TSR, or
yes,
how long?
Through the 80s basically. I started in the middle of January of 82. So I went through all of those job interviews in fall of 81, and I was able to resign my teaching job at the semester, which was kind of good for the school district. So, because they had to let me out of a contract. So that's one reason I resigned or changed jobs in the middle of January. I was unemployed for one weekend.
Wow.
Finished my, so from 82 until.
Oh, I hit the wrong button. Damn it. I'll be right back. I hit the wrong button there. Sorry. I haven't done that in a while. There.
Oh, he has this.
My Stream Deck, I hit a wrong button, so I went the wrong. There we go. We're good.
My hands are not going anywhere. I trust you can hear me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
That was me. It was all me. Don't worry about it.
It works great.
According to what I could research, this is your first ever publication outside of it. You did stuff for Dragon, but this is like the first big one. Was Nighthawks, Star Frontiers? Is that correct?
The first game system I designed.
Okay.
I don't think I wrote anything for Dragon early on.
Okay.
For the magazine. I wrote several adventures. The Against the Cult of the Reptile God, N1, was my first adventure.
That is a classic.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we have to talk about that. It's so cool.
I'm really proud of that. And
oh my God, yeah. It's awesome.
It took a long time. There's enough stories. TSR was a little chaotically organized.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was hired, and then they were hiring more and more game designers. There was another guy that was hired on the same day that I was, and several more people, including Jeff Grubb and Tracy Hickman, came on board in the months after I was there. So the design staff was growing, but they were not, nobody was allowed to write anything for publication without using a brief that had been approved by Gary. He was, the president, but he was president of a growing company, and he was used to being the president of a tiny company.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was creating there were a lot of game designers who really didn't have anything to work on. And it turned out that the Cult of the Reptile God was one module brief that Gary had approved in the past. And it was beginning, the N stands for novice, a beginner's module. It was called the Cult of the Reptile God, but I'm sure you're familiar with some of the PR stuff that was hitting TSR in the early days of students wandering around in steam tunnels of
Right.
Michigan, and just kind of really overblown rumors, but they felt like, we can't be putting out a product that says the Cult of the Reptile God, because everybody's going to say, look they're trying to recruit people into a cult. So they changed the title to Against the Cult of the Reptile God. So that hopefully made it, clear that you're working for the good guys.
So, all right, we might as well start here, because I know Anna and I are going to ask a ton of questions.
Yeah.
So, is this 81 or 82 that this comes out? I always forget. It's 82. Okay.
It must have been. Is that the copyright?
Yeah, it says 82 on it. So that's right around Mazes and Monsters with Tom Hanks, and I know that was like the penultimate "We're all nuts" playing D&D movie, right? So that right at that same time. But like, I look at this one, and I say when people ask, where do I want to start? What do I want to DM? What do I want to play for my players first? I'm like, don't do this one. Do Hamlet first. Do Saltmarsh first. This is tough. This is a really difficult adventure.
It is. It's designed to be, of course. It also has an awful lot of role playing in the first half of it. That
negotiations.
I don't think I've ever done anything else where there's as much of a detective story that you have to do through the village, where your interactions in the first half of the adventure are basically figuring out who in this village has been corrupted by this cult, and then you finally locate where their headquarters in, which is a dungeon, naturally enough. And the second half is a fairly straightforward but deadly dungeon crawl.
So here is, Doug, the entire Orlane on my table when we played it.
Kidding.
Yep. Mm-hmm. As you can see, there's the two inns in the front, right? The Golden Grain, and the other one with the husband and wife on the other side of the bridge. Yeah. So with the lake in the middle. Yeah. So we. It's only been like 3 years ago I ran this for my group, because I run it years and ages ago, but none of those had played it, so we ran through it, and it just is the Temple Marika in the back there, way back here, So everything's on there, on an 8x8 table, so it's squeezed down, but what a great adventure, and a challenging one too. So, but I know we got questions, and I think. One that I have is we know that like Harold brought in part of his campaign into Gary's. So did Alan Hammock. So did Leonard. Was this part of your home game, or did you write this specifically for?
I wrote it exactly the specifications of the brief. I mean, that was the term we used in house. I used whatever it'd be a proposal. Somebody at proposal and a brief outline. So it didn't name any characters or anything in specific, but it laid out the two problems: the identifying who's in the cult, and then going after the evil power at the heart of the behind the cult. So that was purely the specifications. And
was it supposed to be set in Greyhawk to begin with, or was it just a generic adventure that was shoehorned into it?
Orlane,
I think because that was part of the issue with Gary wanted to, understandably, control Greyhawk. That was his campaign.
Yep.
And so this may have been proposed as a part of the Greyhawk campaign, but it was never communicated to me to make it,
Yeah.
to place it into Greyhawk. And I don't think it is, right? I don't think there's anything in the
They
module.
probably put it in afterwards. There is in the forward. There is like a Grand March, and he mentioned
Yes.
Greyhawk a couple of
Yes,
times. That's
yes,
it.
right.
Yeah. Nothing
this
else
was-
is Greyhawk. So yeah.
This was 42 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
We
So-
understand
so-
that
so
completely,
That
man.
was probably something that was put
Hey,
in,
Jeff.
like after you handed it in. Someone put it
Yeah.
in the forward
exactly.
that
was
you
not
can-
a that was not a parameter of the
Yep.
design.
Right.
So it's kind of cool because Merika, the deity that has the temple, is now become part of the Greyhawk campaign thanks to
Oh.
this adventure, because that's the only time it's ever been mentioned. And living Greyhawk, and later on in the great story of Greyhawk, Merika has become part of the campaign setting. So
Oh, that's neat. I like
yeah,
it.
mhm.
Yeah.
So it's
absolutely.
kind of fun. So she's now a Flanese, or in my
Hey, Troy,
campaign,
thanks.
from Old Flan, the origin local deity that has kind of
Yeah,
So,
okay.
so yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and that's a cool deity. And when we were younger, it's like, where is it? It's not in Greyhawk Adventures or anywhere the deity. It's only in here. So it's like we have to go to Cult of the Reptile God if you want to have information on it, which was kind of interesting. But
Yeah.
like,
Can you refresh my memory a little bit on what she was? She was a good, like, on
Yes, it was a
Agriculture.
good agricultural deity. So,
Okay.
let me see if I can
mhm.
find the Temple of Marika here, and all the
Yep.
Marika. Here's the Golden Grain Inn. There's the getting waylaid. Oh man, that's the funnest part. We lost a player character or two early on, and they had to go rescue them. Oh yeah. This was definitely a fun one. And then underground, here's the temple. Let me see if there's any writing on Marika. I forget specifically where it is in the adventure.
A benign goddess. Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know we're pushing it way back on you there, but just
Oh yeah, but it's part of
yeah,
part
that's
of
inside
the
the temple. That's inside the
backdrop,
temple.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That part's inside the temple, and you had the assistant outside who was like he could help you. The old wizened man who was a little nutty.
Yeah.
He was a high level mage. It had a little bit of a feel to it, like Hamlet did, where there was a lot of higher level people in the Druid Grove or whatever in Hamlet, but there was some of that. But it was like really cool that there was cultists against non-cultists in town, but it was all like a shadow thing going on, and they wouldn't talk about it openly. It was cool. Yeah.
I always felt that was a little bit of a weakness, is that in order to overcome that the final encounter, you had to have that wizard with you. So there was a spell. I can't even remember what the creature was. It a basilisk or
No, it was a Naga.
Naga.
Naga?
Yeah.
That's
Naga.
right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. You needed a dispel magic or something to break a lot of it. So, or killer, and then it would break.
well, that's right.
Yeah.
That's not easy to do when you're.
No, that's why for levels 1 to 3, I always recommended third level to really finish this one off. It's a tough adventure, but it was a classic, and it absolutely deserves, with all the others, the accolades of all the others in that early '80s that were genius. Because it was a direction that a lot of people, I don't think, saw in the adventures. This and Len's Assassin's Knot kind of have a little bit of a feel to it, where early on you're trying to figure out what's going on, and then you're like, and then all hell breaks loose. So it was really great.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing the pictures. Kind of that brings me back to some memories. I've got it on a shelf in the next room, and I'm kind of probably after this going to go dig it out.
It was great, and there's placement of it right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's where the Orlane, the cults out there, and the Rushmores. Also where Vecna used to be. Now retconned back in after all those years.
And that's the kind of interesting, because there's a lot of other stuff that got placed there afterwards, long after this was published. So they put in Vecna stuff because Vecna became more and more of a big villain. So then they had to write in a lot of the stories afterwards, and they happen to be in the same area as this. So now there's become a rich adventuring area in Greyhawk with a lot of more published lore decades after this was written. So yeah.
This module is so old that I wrote it on a typewriter.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think very shortly after that, we got our own computer terminals. We didn't have PCs yet, but we had these HP monitors that were hooked up
Yeah.
to a central computer.
Oh
So
my.
Then you had like a main, like a
yeah.
big computer, and you sat on terminal and typed in, and yeah.
Yeah, but definitely an
That was the
absolute classic.
1980s computers. Yeah.
An absolute classic there, and one that if you haven't run it or DM'd it, you should once at least, because it's worth it.
Oh, thanks for the kind words.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but and it's also one of
Absolutely.
these alongside Hamlet as a good little sandbox where you can explore things. It's not a linear going from scene to scene. It's like you can go and explore a neighborhood and a village and go from part to part. And I love these sandbox written stuff. It's fantastic.
The only problem with this sandbox, Anne, is if you go to the wrong building, you're going to get in trouble.
But that should be part of a good sandbox. Is that you should be able to hit the bad ones early on too, and then have to go back and forth and run into trouble and
so Marika was made up just for this adventure. It appears it wasn't okay. All right, because I know a lot of Grail was an amalgamation of other small campaigns. I was just curious if that was the case on this. So I know that the funny thing is that, and we're gonna have two people come on like at the end of the first hour. They want to ask you a question. You know him really well from Gary Con, so that's what I'll say as a hint. But I know that the other adventure, this isn't the favorite one that you've done. Their favorite's this one, and that is Horror on the Hill. This is B5.
I think that was the third project. The third project I wrote.
Yeah.
It was a basic level adventure, and I can't remember very much about it, I have to say, because I mean, the second thing I wrote was The Curse of Xanathon, which was a D&D, not a D&D, but it was a mid.
Yep, I got it right here.
Yeah, okay. Like for characters level 7 or something like that.
5 to 7, yeah. X series for Mulvey. This is during Mulvey Basic, after Holmes Basic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And So and then Horror on the Hill was another very, for beginning characters, and I don't remember much about what it went into it, but I'm glad to hear that people liked it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kurt, funny at GC, we suffer from the curse of Zarathon. Ha ha ha, Brett. So they're talking about Josh Pop, if you know Josh.
Oh, right, yeah.
Josh Josh's a great guy. He gets his stones busted all the times, though. Yeah, so Horror on the Hill's a very good basic adventure dealing with a lot of humanoids, but it's got some really nice plot lines, and not one other one's not easy. I did a variation of it. I did an ode to it. I didn't do it verbatim, but I made some changes to it for my campaign, and that wasn't that long ago, actually. So I ran an ode to Horror on the Hill. So there you go. So we got 3 so far, and we're only into 1983. And that is that's a lot. But then I don't know the year on this. This is one that really surprised. Well, I knew it, but I kind of forgot about it, and that is this. The Dungeon.
Oh yes, that was such an awesome and the Wilderness Survival Guide. That was
the Wilderness. There was someone else, but yeah, this is Doug did the Dungeon one.
Kim Mulvey did the Wilderness.
Yeah.
This was the transition period where AD&D First Edition still was the official set of rules, but AD&D Second Edition, which I believe it was Zeb Cook was primarily coordinating that design process, was in the works, and it really did clean up a lot of some of the vagueness of D&D First Edition. But this Dungeoneer Survival Guide made that transition. Like, it introduced character proficiencies, which have not been part of AD&D First Edition, but seem to have stayed. They're now pretty much integral part of the game.
Yeah, there was so much of the game before these books that were not even covered in the original rules. So the Dungeoneer Survival Guide and the Wilderness Survival Guide gave AD&D a much bigger scope, so to speak, and you could tackle so many more cool situations with these two books.
Yes.
True.
That piece of art Jeff Easley did for the cover.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, he always did great artwork.
Oh, I love these little whatever they are, they nuisance. It's so cool.
He's still in Wisconsin. I run into him periodically at Game Hole.
Yeah, Gary Conn
or Gary Conn in Lake Geneva. Yeah, he's a great guy. He also, one of the things I remember about him when we were in the 80s, some of us had little kids, but we were still basically really young adults, and we would have these Halloween parties. And he had always had the most amazing Halloween costumes he did. One in particular sticks in my mind. If you remember the movie Alien, if most everybody does, where the monster bursts out of the guy's stomach in that shocking moment. So Jeff went in with wearing a sport coat, and just talking and being around.
Oh,
and
he opened
turned
it
out
up.
that he had a fake arm hanging down in the right sleeve of his sport coat. And at some point, his real arm would be operating this puppet that seemed to come out of his stomach.
That's fantastic.
Wow.
That was a memorable costume.
Sometimes shock value is good, you know. So early on, I guess things were rolling along, right? Until the problems didn't happen until 85, 86. Right, some of the stuff.
Before they started, I was the 135th employee of the company.
Wow.
In January of 82, but they were quickly by the end of the year we were over 300 employees. It was growing too fast, and we bought in a needlework company that was a sort of a side thing that didn't really take off, and we just the people that ran it were nice people and good people, but they were gamers, not business people.
Yeah.
Right.
And so as I said, it was somewhat of a chaotic environment, and I think they overreached. And I know, there was a fairly drastic round of layoffs in 84 that after I'd been there for a couple of years, and about 4 or 5 of my friends were showing the door, and that was kind of hard to take.
Yeah.
That wasn't the one where Jim Ward said, "I'm quitting because I got a lady." That was later on, right? That was 89. Right. Yeah.
He remembered he was let go. He quoted that date, April something of 1984, the date that will live in infamy.
Okay.
Because he had been there when I was hired, and then he came back in more of an assistant management and then a management role. But he was another one that was hit pretty hard by that.
So you still, I guess, survived that, and we're still rolling along. And some of the things, you just weren't Greyhawk. I mean, prolific, right? And in all 3 main systems, because you got some Forgotten Realms work, right? Especially with novels. And all right, so this is we've shown Barrel System, but when these came out, I had no idea if they were Greyhawk or if they were what they were. And I have a copy here. It's destroyed, but I have
Bloodstone Pass.
Yeah, wait till you see my copy. It's like flat. It's flattened.
It wasn't a little.
That was like a thin boxed set.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Like a tiny,
so there's no way to put
that. Box set, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but it was a battle system. So Bloodstone Pass.
It was a shameless regurgitation of the 7 Samurai and the Magnificent Seven, which is really a great D&D story if you think about it. And it was the 7 characters, highly accomplished characters called in to save the poor villagers from, in this case, it was orcs and ogres, not bandits. But you had set piece battles, and it actually started a campaign. Michael Dobson and I wrote that together. We did some fiction together too after we went into basically novel writing. But it ended up Bloodstone.
Here we go.
H1, H2.
Yeah, and then here's the big one. Levels. This is the one that went up to levels 100 or whatever.
Yes, right. And the final confrontation was a battle with Orcus himself and the delegates of whatever. I just was somebody at GaryCon was saying that they had gone all the way through that and it took them more than 2 hours to resolve that final encounter between the characters and Orcus, which doesn't surprise me. We still think that was probably the highest
It's
level.
Throne, yeah. Throne's the right one there, Curtis. This is mine. Throne's the one that's up to 100. Yeah, this is the second one. Throne's the third one. Yeah. But, that's an entire series with you and Michael through. And still, like when the first one came out, I was like, oh, this is great. Where the hell is Bloodstone and Greyhawk? I couldn't find it. Well, it turns out it was actually, it wasn't noted anywhere, but it's actually Forgotten Realms.
Yeah, it was. And, I was not aware of writing anything for Greyhawk. Although I've been told there's a Greyhawk.
Oh, yeah, you have written things for Greyhawk.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, wait till you see it. Yeah, this is the one. I'm holding off on this one just to wait until a couple more people hop on because it is a mystery. And we'll tell you the story because Rick Rose and Carl Sargent wrote the one book, right? And this is the one of them all. And so if we go here, here's the City of Greyhawk box set. All right. This is in my opinion, is the best publication ever put out by TSR.
Came out in 1989.
89. And the first book is Greyhawk Gem of the Flannish, Greyhawk GOF, they call it. And it says right here, it's by Doug Niles right there.
Yep.
Wow.
And that is really, really cool stuff. So that's core setting stuff. So,
Kim Mohan was the editor.
Yeah. But we have to put it.
Editing. Mike Bro, Kim Mohan, Diesel did all the cartography. Valasek did the interior art. Yeah.
And to put it into Greyhawk perspective, this came out a year or so after the Saga of Old City, the first Gord novel came out.
Yeah.
But then Gary had left TSR, or been ousted, or however you want to say it, so to speak. So this came out as a kind of it tied into the Saga of Old City, but not as much as I thought. I will be like, oh, so cool, but no, it was two different separate things in some sense, so to speak. So
I'm embarrassed to say this. I'm drawing a complete blank.
No, but it's
okay.
It's a cool piece of setting. So you don't need to be embarrassed about this one. It's a great solid. It's a great solid Greyhawk product.
Setting.
So,
It's more of a setting than an adventure. Do I take it?
It's got adventures in it, adventure cards, and all sorts of wonderful things.
And it's a description of the city and its surrounding areas. And
there's two books.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have one for NPCs and stuff.
But here's the thing with folk feuds and factions. This is done by Rick Rose and Carl Sargent. And we had Rick Rose on a couple years ago, and he said he and Carl wrote the entire book in a weekend in a cottage in the UK.
Yeah,
the entire book.
Typewriters and out in the stone house. He showed a picture of the house out in Cornwall or Gabbin or somewhere.
Showed us details and stuff, and then I went to ask questions about Gem of the Flannish. He's like, "Oh no, you got to talk to Doug about that."
because they have no clue about that. So it's interesting. It was one box set.
We weren't collaborating.
Okay, all right. So that's good to know. But just like, you got a lot of detail in here about areas of the city, and there's all sorts of specific locations. Maybe, did you collab this with someone, you think, or?
Honestly,
it's okay.
I can't imagine how my name got listed as the author of that.
In that sense, would a brief contain details that you had to flesh out, or was it just like a generic, this is the basic story, just write the whole thing, so to speak?
Very basic. Very. Now that map does kind of look familiar.
So this is Blackthorn, which is one of the most legendary places in the gnarly forest in Greyhawk.
Yeah.
This is it's a location where there's hundreds and hundreds of humanoids. They can come out and raid into the gnarly forest, which normally is not known for bad things happening except for this. So that is in here, and there's like the gnome community of Grosset Grottle is in here, which is in the Cairn Hills. There's a lot of just wonderful things that are in this book, and just this is this is what I would always strive to say. This is if something else comes out, it's got to be as good as this whole publication.
I'm going to have to get a look at that. It's
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And
I have my whole portfolio on a bookshelf
Mhm.
in the next room over.
Yeah.
It's not there.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's cool. But and one
That's
other
interesting.
like a general question, meaning cartography is my thing. I sit
Yeah.
and do fantasy
Yeah.
maps for a
Hey,
living, so to
what's up,
speak. So I
Chad?
was kind of curious, when you started a project, were illustrations and maps, did they come afterwards all the time, or was it cases where you had maps and illustrations to work from, or was it a collaboration back and forth, or how did that usually unfold, so to speak?
Well, it was, I the game designer, me or whoever, would tend to make a map of a setting. Like when I was writing about the village
Yeah.
in Reptile God, I mapped out the village, and I'm not an artist.
No, but you sketch it out and yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
This was, you mentioned Dave the Force Diesel. I was a really good cartographer. I worked with him on some of the war games I did, which require, of course, really elaborate.
I was going to say you've been a war game into war games for a long time, which is even more map dependent, so to speak. Yeah.
And Diesel and then Dave Sutherland were probably the two most memorable map makers I worked with. Sutherland was the one that introduced, and I know Tracy Hickman did a lot with this on Ravenloft, and then we all used it in Dragonlance. And I also used it in Dungeoneer's Survival Guide, that those three-dimensional layered maps where they were all kind of stacked on a
They
page.
were they were so revolutionary when that book came out. They were huge. I've hardly ever seen anything like it. They were fantastic. Were you part of coming up with the design and idea for that?
Dave Sutherland gets credit for that.
Okay,
I soaked it up and used it a lot.
Yeah.
But, he was very, very precise about, here's how you line up your, if you have a stairwell coming from this floor to that floor, this is how you draw it out. So I would, and then as you remember probably from Dungeoneer's Survival Guide, there's the templates.
Yeah, let me bring that back up.
Blank with the
I'll see if we can find out. I'll bring my copy and see if we can. Oh yeah, you have the bring them up in there. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. That was revolutionary. Yeah,
it was, and it looks nice. It's
really cool.
It's awesome. Yeah. I would love to see someone make a digital version where you can do this quickly. That looks like that with a simple sketch or just a color of it would be awesome.
Hey, Tim.
So someone who's a software engineer, look at this for inspiration and figure out a way to do it quickly digitally, and damn, it will be the best VTT ever.
That's a really good idea. Yeah.
Yep. Because
a lot after that. Dragonlance had a lot of settings.
Oh yeah.
We had a tall castle or something like that. It was
and also Ravenloft.
The original
came
Ravenloft,
out, afterwards making professional use of that style for the first time in a novel.
The first product where it just really wowed people.
Yep. But this is where a lot of these cool ideas came out, and that's the first time I've ever seen a lot of them. There were tiles meaning this and the Wilderness Survival Guide expanded the game in so many different ways. So I think that these are some of the best things ever published for D&D, in my opinion, because they were so revolutionary and widened the scope of the game more than hardly any other product have ever done, so to speak. So,
they were the splat books of their time before second edition had too many of them, right?
Yeah.
But now you want to collect every single one because you're like, I got to have this, I got to have that. But back in the day, they were the...
that this was one of the first time stuff like this has ever been done. It's been done repeatedly for every edition since, but it's never been done before these books. They were...
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
And there's some great, and look at the size of these. I mean, they're turned
sideways.
Meaning
that's wow. So inspiring. It's really, really cool. So I when I map the Underdark and when I start fiddling around with stuff like that, I'm looking to this for inspiration still after 40 years.
Nice.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's just like, I'm an old school purist, 1E, 2E, and I just say there's nothing wrong with 5E, but just the stuff the stuff that was written, maybe because I'm close to you there, Doug. You know what I'm saying? I started playing in 1978 when I was 11. So it's and my campaign since 1980. I mean, it's been a long road, and just like this stuff
Yeah, I
back then, I just
started
love.
playing 7980 and
Love-
60 now, so yeah.
Love
so
the
I'm
quality of it
there.
all. It's just
Early
so
20s at the time.
Yeah.
it's so wonderful
I've evolved
stuff.
how I play the
You have.
D&D over
We all have.
the years. So exactly,
We all
I've
have. With
changed
custom rules and
a lot,
things.
so to speak. But so
Yeah.
I'm one toe back in how it was done 50 almost 50 years ago, and now one other foot in the new era, so to speak, and everywhere in between. Yeah.
Just these pictures on cave formations alone. I
Mhm.
mean, too. It's just
Yeah.
really, it was just really useful information, and it.
Yeah, and back then there
but-
was no internet. You couldn't Google for things. You had to go to the library, and they had one book on caves
No
if you were
PDFs.
lucky. And so this was really, really useful information. Yeah.
Everyone remember you could, if you were lucky in the late 80s, you could scan stuff into that stupid OSR software, and then, but it just didn't work. Like, just especially dragons, because I was tired of a photocopy, going to a photocopy machine and doing it, because, but it just that technology never took off. But like now with the PDFs, it's just
and it was
there
so
weren't
cool
any.
that you could find these things. I remember drawing the diagram, these lines for 3D on one sheet of paper, and then photocopy and using it as a reference sheet, because I couldn't find this engineering isometric paper, so I had to make my own. It took like a weekend sitting drawing lines and then working from there.
We put those templates in that book so that
but I wanted a bigger one, so I had to make a bigger sheet and stuff. So
let's placate those that are Dragon Lancers here, because you did the DL series. You did 4 of them, right? I got
we are Greyhawk.
That's okay.
First and foremost, but we have to talk about the other settings and stuff. Cool stuff.
Dragons of Flame, the second one.
Yep, that was I mean, that Dragonlance was definitely, in terms of the game, was Tracy Hickman's brainchild. And of course, he and Margaret Weiss worked together on the novels, which were successful beyond anybody's imagining. But the game, I remember Tracy saying, right when we were, I think the idea was born about 83 or something like that, we've got this game called Dungeons and Dragons, and we've never done an adventure that has a dragon.
Really?
And so he's kind of an idea man, not just, he was going to let that idea rest. He said, we should do one module for each of the 12 dragons that's in the monster manual, the 6 evil and 6 good aligned dragons. And that grew from there. And then the story, he mapped out the world of Kryn in incredible detail. Really a beautiful map he drew for that. And then, the story just took on a life of its own. And I had a chance to write, let's see, Dragons of Deceit. Which one is DL?
Yeah, DL2, DL6, DL9, and DL11. 2 is I'm sorry, 6 is ice.
Yeah, I love that. That painting predated any Dragonlance product.
It's an Elmore, right? It's definitely an Elmore.
Yep. Yeah. He and Margaret got the artists enthused about the possibilities of Dragonlance, so they started doing paintings on their own that were to be basically they were first used to convince TSR management that this was a product line worth backing, and it was not a no-brainer in the upper part of the company, but they ended up like with the novels, they ended up saying to Tracy and Margaret, you can write a novel and we'll see what happens. Now like 120 Dragonlance novels out there. Yeah. But so the original 12 modules, DL1 through 12, summarize that general idea. And they obviously the Dragons of Ice had the white dragons as the main creatures, but every one of them had dragons of the different colors involved. And even then, after there were several more modules added after the 12, and I know one was not so much a module, but it was Dragons of Glory, was a strategic war game where you had the game map was the whole map of Kryn that Tracy had originally done, but it was with a hex grid, so that you could move counters on it like in a regular board war game.
Yeah.
And it was what was that? I think it was called. Is that's not it? Is it?
Yeah, number 11.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's right. That
Yeah.
is.
Yep. Yep.
Tracy wrote the story background, and I wrote the game rules, and it was a grand strategic war game that really was pretty workable, and it was a heck of a big war in the story. So, which did not get a lot of detailed treatment in the original novels. The war was kind of a backdrop, and which is, certainly made this. I think made the novels very compelling. But it was, to my interest would have been to write about the battle. So I was able to do this game, and then and several short stories. I had a chance to do some short stories about battles in the War of the Lance.
Okay.
Yeah, and he came with real like these little counters and yeah, like a proper war game.
Yes, exactly. With
the map is fantastic. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had 4 out of the first 12.
Mm-hmm.
Saying something there.
And I ended up with 18 novels in the Dragonlance line from about 1990 to 2010.
I think I brought up one trilogy. I was like, wow. Here, it's Dragonlance Darkholme. It's hard to see putting them together. Dragonlance Darkholme. Yeah, so you got I can't even see it. Secrets of Parthakis, right? Yeah, and the third one's the Fate of Thorbardin is the third one in that series.
Oh yeah, okay, that's the dwarf trilogy. Yeah,
dwarf trilogy. Yes, yeah, for them. So, yeah, really cool. Yeah,
yeah, that was basically my job, my career once I left TSR in 1990. I basically left to become a freelance writer, and I still did some game design for them, but I did probably more fiction writing than.
Oh wow! Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Dragonlance novels were my bread and butter for 20 years.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't know if I saw any. There may have been one Greyhawk novel. I want to think that there was one. It was one of those ones that's based on an original adventure. Hey, John. Let's see. And this is that's Forgotten Realms. I think this is one of the few Forgotten Realms ones you did. This is the Moonshade trilogy, right?
Second Moonshade trilogy. Yeah,
second. Okay.
Yeah. Then you the Rod of
trilogies.
7 parts. You did in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I guess was loosely set in the Forgotten Realms, but it was more of a standalone product. But the Moonshade, in fact, the first novel I wrote that was published was called Dark Walker on Moonshade, and it was the first Forgotten Realms product that was ever published.
Mm-hmm.
It came out before the box game set.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow, yeah. It came out before the hardback book, and was the hardback book out, or was it just the? Because I know the hardback book I think came out a little bit earlier, right? Because that was still during the first edition era.
Well, I thought that the Forgotten Realms product was originally a box set.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking the Dragonlance book. Yeah, you're right. But it was.
Oh yeah, it was the gray, silvery, gray, dark gray book set with that awesome writer. The illustration is fantastic on that one. I should have it here, sitting here somewhere. Yeah.
But Dark Walker on Moonshade was the first actual product that had Forgotten Realms on the cover.
Oh, yeah.
Ed Greenwood's, of course, creation was Forgotten Realms, and he had introduced it in a whole bunch of Dragon articles using Elminster, the voice of Elminster, the Sage, as who now he plays Elminster at game conventions, and he's quite but so there was a wealth of material for Forgotten Realms out there, and I believe it was when the company was looking to branch out into more environments, because Greyhawk was, as we said, Gary's domain.
Yeah,
and he wasn't able. He didn't have time to write a lot of adventures, but he also kind of wanted to keep that, close to his heart. So Forgotten Realms became a virtually limitless AD&D campaign world. That the Moonshades were just one little set of islands. I know that, I actually
Here we go.
Had let me change his original map, had them as they are in the official.
Yeah,
Islands.
I've seen both Ed's original map and then the one that he gave to Jeff Grubb, and he pasted over a new version on top of it and stuff. So yeah,
which I got to design those islands.
Cool. Yeah.
I really wanted to do a story with kind of a Celtic, like a Welsh, Irish, Scottish motif,
Yeah.
and so I needed bigger islands. He said, "Yeah, I just put those down there, and I kind of viewed them as sort of like an Earthsea thing, like the Ursula K. Le Guin trilogy." But he said, "But you can do what you want with them." So I made
You
fewer
developed
islands,
them and yeah.
islands, and kind of loosely based them on Great Britain. And in fact, there was a team of British game designers that wanted to do a series of D&D novels in a world that they were designing, and they came over to Lake Geneva, and we were hoping to get to do something together, but that project fell through. But they were the ones who came up with that monster Khazgaroth that I ended up using in the Moonshays, and was basically the ultimate antagonist of the first trilogy.
Well, that's really cool to hear. That it was one of those that like they said, no, we're not standing alone. It's got to go. It's got to go in Getting Forgotten Realms, right? It's just yeah. And Ed was such an easy go. Ed's on next week, by the way. So.
Oh, good.
And I get the DM for Ed too once in a blue moon too, so it's awesome. He plays in the Greyhawk game, so Ed's awesome. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit. Maybe we'll ask him a couple follow-up questions on the Moonshays. But
sorry.
No, please.
There was a game, like a 96-page game book, not a module adventure, but a location, like the city descriptions. What you call it. But anyway, there was a Moonshay product done like that, and then there ended up being 6 novels in the two Moonshay trilogies.
Okay,
basically, it was about one family's dynasty, and then I also got the chance to design Maztica for not in the
here it is
continent as the regular Forgotten.
No, but it's the same general campaign setting. It's one other region, so to speak, or
yeah. Well, of course, when I do that, it's really weird. When I click on the Maztica one, you don't see the other one. So if I click on this one, then I can see the Maztica one.
So those were where you wrote like 3 novels for it, or was it game modules was novels?
It was the box set was the
right here.
Green World, a description of the
3 books.
The various cultures. I actually was able to go to Mexico, toured some of the museums of anthropology in Mexico City, and my wife and I toured several of the Mayan ruins, Uxmal and Chichen Itza, Tulum, and it was really fascinating. And I tried to incorporate as much of that. It's pretty historically well known, as I've said. I'm fascinated by military history, and the conquest of the Aztecs by the conquistadors is quite a dramatic military story. As had all kinds of tragic moral implications. But it's the closest thing to a real life D&D story I can think of, actually. And so I had created these 2 kinds of what was it, feather magic and
Feathered Dragon's a 3rd book.
Yes,
Iron Helm, Viper Hand, Feathered Dragon are the 3 books.
I'm trying to think of what there were 2 kinds of magic that
so you got a chance to add to the repertoire of rules and stuff for this too?
Yes.
Cool.
That is awesome.
They were not the magic was not powerful enough to stand against a 10th level wizard, fireballs and things like that, which is kind of historically analogous. But it was interesting to take some of the things that I had learned about that culture and to try to move it into a D&D campaign setting.
Cool.
Not tattoo? Was it tattoo magic? One of them, or
no?
I know feathered. He said there was 2. I was just curious.
Yeah, and I can't. The second one is escaping me right now.
That's okay.
There were 2 classes of knights: the Eagle Knights and the Jaguar Knights, which were based on Aztec military.
Warriors,
orders, yeah. And I know the Eagle Knights were tied into the feather magic, and maybe it might have been Talon magic or something for the
Okay.
Jaguar Knights. Then I'm that was a long time ago too.
It's okay. Yeah, I mean, we like reminiscing here. You
Yeah.
know, we like sharing the history, and so that we have a lot of new people to the community, and we just want them to know how appreciative we are of all the people who have contributed over the years. You know, so I'm so happy to finally get you on the show here, and just we can talk about all the wonderful things that it's my childhood. You know, it was the Gen X guy. You know, had played outside as a kid. Then the computers came in 80, and D&D came in 78, 79, 80. It just was a perfect time. So you had a mix of both. So, yeah, definitely. Hey, all right. So, you got a ton of books, man. A ton of trilogies.
Yeah, I actually have almost 50 novels published.
Wow.
So the 18 Dragonlance, and then I think there's 9 Forgotten Realms with the 2 Moonshade trilogies and the Maztica trilogy, plus the Rod of 7 Parts. As you say there, I think it's loosely based in the world of Greyhawk. Although I don't remember. I'm sorry, the Forgotten Realms, but I don't remember applying a specific locale to it. And then some other trilogies.
Thanks, Troy. So according to Cannibal, Pluma and Hishna magic. Pluma is feathered, and Hishna is talon. There you go. Thank you. Beautiful. Thanks for checking that out. Yeah, and that's cool. So that would be something you wanted to check in if you're doing Hepmonaland or the Ullman with the Tuve and stuff. It's something you could incorporate into your Greyhawk. So I would check that out. And they're in the books. They're in the books, or are supplements to the books explaining the rule system you used for them, like the Maztica set.
It was a box set with 2 books in it, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so there were one book I think was centered on characters, and one was centered on the setting, the locale.
Let me take a look here.
I don't think I ever did any adventures per se for Maztica, but the campaign setting, if somebody was really wanted to take run.
Yeah, it was that cool era when TSR had like 6 game setting lines they wrote stuff for, and it was like 6, 7, or 8 or something. It was a golden era of cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, Zeb Cook did the Oriental Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
There's so there's the Maztica box set. I imagine that thing's going for 100 to 200 minimum on eBay. It's probably rare. It's probably very rare now. So
yeah, I bet it's fairly rare. I had a large house out in the country for most of my adult life, my wife and I, and we moved. We're in Madison, Wisconsin right now. We moved into a small house in the city, and I had to divest myself of a huge library of game and books, which was kind of sad. But I don't know if you're familiar with Noble Knight Games.
Yep.
Yeah, they're actually right here in Madison, and I was able to take products. I had shelves and shelves and shelves, many of them in shrink wrap because I had never opened them. But when I was working for TSR, basically all the employees got one copy of every new product that came out.
Yeah.
And of all the things I took there to sell, they basically, I could have tried to sell it individually, but I'm not psychologically equipped to do that, to label and package and mail individual things. So I took boxes and boxes over to Noble Knight, where they paid about half of what they would charge for it, which seemed fair to me for the label.
Yeah.
And the thing that I got the most money for from them was Bloodstone Pass.
Oh yeah.
This mango copy.
Yeah, this was about $3 in this form, but
no, but it's probably, it's still worth money. Yeah.
I bought it as, what is this? 80. What year is this? 80. It's 85. So I was a senior in high school when I got this.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So and everything's there. But let's let me reminisce here a little bit, and because we just scratched the surface on battle system. And
can I ask?
Please.
2 questions just before we get.
Please.
Please.
Where are you out of, Jay?
Oh, I'm right outside Philly. I live in South Jersey. I've lived here my whole life.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Anna?
I grew up in Sweden and moved to Southern California, like 12 years ago now. I grew up in western part of Sweden and lived in Stockholm for a lot of years and across the country and played over there. And then I actually paid thousands of dollars to ship my collection of books over to California again. So they have been around the world. Basically,
nice.
they were printed here and yeah. So I back there as a hobby. I was in the military and doing other jobs. That was my but I was part owner of a game store and I was part of running conventions and stuff as a hobby. And I played. That was one of my many hobbies, so to speak. And I started making maps as a hobby. And then I needed a job. So when I moved over here, I finished a project of making a fan map of Greyhawk, and then I mapped for about a dozen game publishers, then
Nice.
setting maps and stuff. And now I run a Patreon and keep mapping Greyhawk. And yeah.
Cool.
So that's my story around gaming, so to speak. And now I go to part of organizing
Squished.
Gary Con and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you get to Gary Con periodically?
Every
Yeah,
year,
I've been
we're all
to
there.
7,
Yeah.
8 Gary Cons now, and I've been part of running
Yep.
4 of them, I think. Yep.
Nice. I met Jay just this year. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
we met 2 and 3 years ago with the 2 people that are going to cop on, and just I know how busy you were. I mean, you were at a table playing with them. You were DMing
Yep.
for them, and they're going to come on and ask a couple of questions.
Okay.
But last year we both were running Tower of Gygax.
Okay.
So was
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
We all ran
That's
Tower of
right,
Gygax. Yeah,
Yep.
and
So we took turns.
yeah, it was right.
Yep.
Yeah, I know how busy you were, and I really appreciate you stop and talk with me a little bit on.
Yeah, that was nice. I led to this.
Excuse me. So,
Yep.
I don't do anywhere near as many cons as I should. Still working my full-time job. Anna's doing a lot more. Do you do just Gary Con now, or do you get to North Texas? Do you get to Game
Game
Hole?
Hole, I think. Yeah.
Basically, every year I'm trying to do Game Hole and Gary Con, which are both
Yeah.
of course in Wisconsin. I'm retired. I'm 70 years old, so I'm not really. I don't have a budget for buying myself plane tickets, and I don't have new products in a way that conventions want to bring me
Sure.
frequently as a paid for guest. So I don't, which is fine. I'm comfortably retired. I have I enjoy having my time, but I do like doing these local conventions. I've written
Yeah.
several adventures, and I'm one that I ran at Gary Con, and I'm going to run it at Game Hole in October this year.
Oh, wonderful. Then we have to meet up again. I'm going to Game Hole as well this year.
Good.
So,
Well,
yep.
look forward to meeting you there then.
Yeah,
So-
same. Yeah.
So I got a meeting with Ron again. I should probably reach out. If there's a Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, year 3 is next year in January.
I have the T-shirt
Eric
on here.
Boyd,
Yep.
name someone. They're all VIPs. I could have Ron reach out to you if you want, Doug.
Oh, yeah, if you want to-
I know
want to come.
they invite you as a VIP, all covered guest. So
Thank you.
consider it. Yeah, I mean it's
Yep.
3rd weekend in January. So yeah.
Oh, that would I haven't done the closest convention I did to that was with my first year at TSR. We did one in it was actually called Gen Con East.
At
Yeah,
Widener.
there were Gen Cons West
82.
and East and UK and yeah.
No, Doug. I may have run into you as a kid there, 1982. I got Gary Gygax signed my Dragon magazine there at Widener College, 1982.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah,
So
that was-
yeah, Gen Con
I've never
East.
been to a game convention before.
Really, that was your first one at Widener, huh? Wow.
New Jersey, right?
Yeah, no, it was in PA. It was at Widener College.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was at Widener College, right across the one bridge. Yeah. So yeah, in 1982, New Gen Con
Okay.
East. Yeah, man. So I was 14 or 15. I was a sophomore in high school.
Okay.
Mhm.
I guess I was about 28.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that was a great one. You were living in University City at the time, Hager? That's cool. Yeah, so we got a lot of commentary coming in online here. We got almost 100 people on watching. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah. All right. Our guests, others will be coming on shortly. Can we go back to? I just want to pick your brain a little bit on how you came up with like the morale system, if you remember, and things like that for battle system, because that really changed the way. It wasn't just it was a tactical game. We really tried to implement. I did a lot of combats with it, with battle system. And I know Bloodstone Pass and then Patriots of Ulick was another one that had battle system in it. And I know it kind of fizzled a bit. I know they retried to bring out was it chainmail after that with miniatures, but I really thought you guys had something in particular when you came out with this book, because this is where we lived. The miniatures book,
Yeah,
which
that was
did
very simple, a much more simple version of the red box.
yeah,
It's a different set of rules,
right, absolutely. And then you can see like these are from 1980. This is 89, where there's not a lot of miniatures of terrain out there in 1989. And so, like, we were like, wow. And so, showing like the tactical, night. And those are true miniatures. So people or whoever put this together, yeah, here comes first one of them. So Mr. Curtis Cable there, Doug.
Hello.
How many years in a row you played with Doug there, Curtis, at Gary Con?
See, Brett and I have been in 1, 2 as of this last March, because it's the first one of a 3-parter. And then Doug, hello Doug,
Hi.
was in Tower Gygax for us.
Yeah,
oh yeah, right.
Curtis and Brett.
I'm running that. Yeah, I did a 2-hour session of that. Jeff Grubb was right at the next table, and that was fun, wild. I didn't kill anybody, which I feel was sort of a failure.
Damn.
Wow.
Yeah. I was waiting for some slaughter, but it never did happen. It was funny, but it was these are bucket list things. I sat right in between watching Jeff Grubb and Doug Niles run games. It was pretty crazy. It was actually pretty cool. But and I don't know if this got brought up earlier, Jay. You'll find this amusing. So Doug came over to the table a little bit beforehand just to see the layout and kind of the lay of the land. And we started talking, and Doug said, he's from Wisconsin. And I said, yeah, I grew up in Northern California, and I've been living in the San Francisco Bay Area for about the last 14 years. And it just came up who we follow in the NFL.
Uh-oh.
And Doug said he's a big Packers fan. And I said, I grew up as a big Niners fan. So we reminisced a little bit about, the Niners and Packers all the way back to the 90s, for 30 years of rivalry. And it was really funny because I had written a number of encounters for our DM's books. You guys know, for Tower Gygax, we write these, 2-hour, 1 hour, self-contained encounters for the DMs if they want to just be able to take something and run with it for the DM's sake. And Doug says to me, Curtis, some of these encounters are really tough. and I said, yeah, well, I usually write them in the fall on Sundays. And
watching football.
Watching football and how badly the Niners did last year, it was directly proportional with how tough the encounter was. It was definitely
Sunday afternoon is my experience calculation day, where I'm sitting there doing experience on sheets normally. Yeah, but Doug, we got a little bit of a rivalry then, because you're anti-tush push, and I'm a Philly Eagle fan. So
right, I know. That's both the Niners and the Eagles kind of have the Packers number these last couple years.
We'll see about this year. And here's Brett from Tower Gygax as well. Both of them.
Hi, Brett.
Yeah. So really wanted to get them on because I wanted to ask you a couple questions or follow-ups. So you gents want to ask something before I hit the battle system a little bit?
Yeah, go for it, Brett. Go ahead and start.
Oh, okay.
Specifics you got.
Just I don't know. You probably weren't seeing chat, Mr. Niles, but one of the things that I absolutely fell in love with was the Dark Walker trilogy. It was one of, really inspirational series of books and wonderful to read. When I was a kid, I started off reading some stuff by Lloyd Alexander, The Chronicles of Prydain. So, for me, like, I've had a love for that kind of Celtic, Welsh, kind of setting. So were those some inspirations for you before you got to that?
Absolutely. If you would have asked me without even setting this up, what was the inspiration for it? I would have said The Chronicles of Prydain by Lloyd Alexander. Those 5 books just blew me away.
Wow.
I mean, okay, Lord of the Rings is the quintessential masterpiece of the genre, but but the Chronicles were so accessible, and they mainly maybe because they followed it was a simpler story. It followed
Mhm.
one main character and one a male and female character and their relationship, and yeah, it was it just I've read it probably 3, 4 times. When I gave it to my kids when they were, teenagers, and I've got a 10-year-old grandson who's an avid reader, so he's going to be getting a copy of it before too long. Yeah, Chronicles of Prydain is probably the most personally influential fantasy series I've ever read. Highly recommended to anybody who hasn't read it. It's billed as a young adult series, but it's pretty meaty.
Yeah, I think I started reading it when I was probably too young for it at 10, 11 years old, but I ate it up. Yeah, it was a wonderful series. Um, and then about the time I picked up Moonshae, I had started reading some Morgan Llewellyn, so I was really hitting some of the deeper Celtic stuff. So it was amazing to me. And obviously that came out well after yours, but that was awesome. And I also wanted to say that for so many years I've been moving this from house to house.
Oh, you have a box set of it. Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, I do.
Oh,
That was the first,
man.
that was the first
Um,
game system I ever
Wow.
designed.
yeah. And just, I mean, that alone, plus the opportunity to have gamed with you twice now in 2 different games at Gary Con has just been amazing. So,
Oh, that's cool. Well, I hope we'll have to do it again.
oh yes, I hope to do it again.
So, Curtis, you got a question?
Yes, actually do. And we mentioned two of my favorite modules, and they were early on, Doug. That was B5 Horror on the Hill and Against the Cult, the Reptile God.
Mhm.
Horror on the Hill has so many layers to it. Like you could play that game, for multiple sessions. Um, I am a huge fan of the Monastery. I actually took the Monastery, bookended it with some Greyhawk lore, and ran it at
Hmm.
Gary Con a couple of years ago. I love those settings. And then with N1, it's just, to me, it always struck me as such a cool adventure that it is tough, but I like the setting. And I guess I'll start with N1. Was that when you were developing it and when you were producing this in the early 80s for TSR, was it meant as just a standalone adventure, or was there any concept that you can recall to explore that area of whether it's understanding it wasn't directly developed for Greyhawk, but was there any sense of that would be a 2 or 3 module set just because the core adventure of it had so many elements for growth?
Actually, there was no sense of that. I don't know if you caught the very beginning of our
It's okay.
discussion here. That was Gary Gygax had created that concept, what we called a brief. It's really one page describing, where the adventure is going to be set, what level of characters it's going to be for, and maybe a general idea of the antagonist and so forth. But he was at that point he was still in charge of Greyhawk. He was the main writer for Greyhawk product, but he was running out of time to write because he was the president of a fast growing company, and so the way I was kind of privileged to get this module, this brief that he had sketched out, and turn it into an adventure, which I didn't even have any awareness of any Greyhawk parameters at that point. I just knew it was going to be, and it was designed to be insular so that it could be plopped into a campaign wherever anybody wanted to put it. And that was, I tried to give it a lot of detail. When I'm glad it sounds like that's coming through with what people talking about. I understand from Anna that the goddess that I introduced for this has become a fixture.
Yeah.
And some of the none of that had any I had no prospects of, and I never went back to work on anything that came after it. So it was out there, and subsequently people were able to use it and however they wanted to, but it was not envisioned as anything more than a standalone introductory level module. The N in the titles at the time stood for novice.
I thought it was Niles.
Well, that's people thought that, yeah. And there was not a lot of like there was the I series that were intermediate but and the H series or was it the G series where the Giants
Giants.
Yeah, they all so they didn't there was not a lot of consistency in how they were the numbers and letters and numbers were assigned.
Yeah, because N2's Destiny of Kings, I think. So it has nothing to do with N1, if I recall. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
that's I was going to say one last question, Jay.
Please, no, go for it.
And I know in talking to Ed, there's certain things that he's blocked to talk from. But I pose this, Doug. Is there back in that day when you were predominantly designing modules in those games, was there something that you pushed to get published and it just the decisions of TSR management they said, no, we're going to go on to a different product, something you really wanted to push forward and it hit the cutting room floor and it never made publication?
I can't actually recall anything that I was really, I mean, I put some ideas out there that, we're just kind of rough draft ideas that never came to anything, but that's kind of typical. The product I probably pushed the hardest for that I really wanted to do was the novel that became Darkwalker on Moonshade.
Cool.
And the Moonshade trilogy, which again it came out of are very, very much inspired by the Prydain, the Lloyd Alexander Prydain books. It's his books are set in Wales, essentially. Well, a fantasy version of Wales, and so I expanded it to more like the whole British Isles kind of thing. And but there were the Norsemen.
Mm-hmm.
I remember what they were called. It was a name that you could figure out. Yeah, these are the North.
Yeah, look at that. He's got them all.
Yep, that's the first trilogy right there.
And there's our supplement.
Oh, you do have it. Okay.
Yeah, that's on. Brett and I spent many, many years in the Forgotten Realms playing. So I've had the fortune and misfortune of knowing Brett for 40 years. So we've been playing a lot of games for a lot of days. So just kidding.
Yeah.
But I would like to end with everybody on this screen. I've had the pleasure of either knowing, getting to know, and have had experience in the Tower of Gygax event. Everybody on this screen has run an event or partial of event or done something to help that event. And that's Brett and I are the admins for that. And we're very proud of it. So Doug, the door is always open. If you want to be involved with it moving forward, we'll push things out a little bit earlier this year and would love to have you back.
Thank you. I would like to be back. I'm planning on going again at this next year. And in fact, was it Brett mentioned the module that I wrote was designed as the first part of a 3-part adventure. So I'm planning to do the second part next year and the third part the year after. So I got to live a couple more years at least.
So you got
the Lost King. I enjoyed that.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we were in the myself, Brett, Antiquitous. I think Alex was in that game.
Yeah.
There was a half a dozen of us, all of us scalawags that were in your game on that Sunday morning, Doug. So
right,
we're all aiming for that as well. It was phenomenal. So thank you, Jay, for giving us a few minutes.
Yeah, you guys are allowed to hang if you want. If you want to get off, it's fine. Either way, you're welcome. Either way, because we got a 4-box, which is fine. So we're good.
No, Mrs. Cable just notified me that I have to go barbecue here in a second.
So one real quick rhetorical question: are you unfritzed after yesterday?
Oh yeah, but it took all day. I went through the defritzing. Doug, I play a particular character in Jay's ongoing, multi-year campaign.
Okay.
Who is my dark alter ego, and he's something else. So I call it his name's Fritz Winchester. I call it a defritzing because my wife doesn't want me to be around if I'm still being that kind of a hooligan. So it was a very, very fun game. We really get into the role play of it and everything else. So
in July we're doing a 24-hour stream with him playing that character.
I didn't tell you this, Jay. She actually suggested, you know what? Do you want to go stay at a motel? that weekend and just do your thing?
Just
I'm
fly
like,
out here.
She
again,
wants you
Curtis.
to do it remotely.
Just fly out here,
Kicking
Curtis.
me-
We'll just stay in the
Kicking you
basement.
out of your house to
Yeah.
run that game.
Yeah, then
Holy
just
kicking me out?
Go
No.
crazy.
Wow. Oh my.
She's like, no, I didn't really mean it. I'm like, you did. You just said that. Yeah. It was
Oh
actually
my
really
gosh.
funny. I forgot to tell you that, but no, I'll be fine. But
Wow.
yeah, looking forward to that in a month. I can't believe it's a month.
Yeah, I know.
And the shameless plug for GaryCon,
Mhm.
because if I don't say something, you know who will get on me about it.
Josh.
Yep.
Because we're all minions. We're all minions in certain ways. Things will start happening. Badges will go on sale next month. Brett, is that right? It's usually late July.
July. Yeah.
Yeah,
July.
and we'll be.
Yeah.
It's coming up
Yeah.
quick.
Oh yeah, it's coming up fast.
Oh yeah.
Before I knew it, I took a nap and I woke up and it was June.
I got but the special ones will go up before that too, right?
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
All right. There you go.
But yeah, we'll be reaching
cool.
out for Tower
Okay.
Guide X a lot sooner than we did last year because we want to get everybody in place.
Curtis,
So,
just put me same time as last year.
perfect.
Thursday 5.
Got it.
Yep. All right, cool.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so excellent. Well, thank you guys so
Awesome.
much. Really appreciate it. All right.
Yep.
I'll see you guys.
All right,
Bye,
we'll
guys.
see you soon. Thanks,
Bye.
guys. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, they wanted to come on and
Oh,
say
nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
definitely. So very, very cool.
Yeah.
That Sunday morning game was, it's the third time that I ran that adventure. And that was the first AD&D product I had written in probably 30 years. And I had done a Dungeons and Dragons adventure before that. So there's, I wasn't like completely out of practice, but
Right.
just picking up some of the rule complexity, and then basically was finishing it up on the Wednesday, as I think most people do who run games at conventions, finishing up on the day before I went to the convention. And so I ran it Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. And each time it got a little better. So by the time I ran it on Sunday, I had basically 2 play tests of it. And I was pretty happy with how it turned out. I'm going to be running it again in Madison when we do Gamehole convention in October.
Very cool. A quick question in the audience. Did you run any long-term Underdark campaigns based on what you did in the Dungeoneer Survival Guide?
No, I didn't actually run any campaigns that were just for my hobby. Once I started working at the company,
Wow.
which was 82, I was writing a lot.
Yeah.
That
takes a lot of time.
I play tested things that I wrote for the company, but I didn't actually have a campaign anymore.
Yeah, you couldn't remote in everyone back then. You know what I mean? That was,
yeah. We were on my original group. People started having children, and we used to. We were all like, there were several married couples, but people, some of them had to drive an hour to get to my house, and we ran it, basically every Friday night for 2 or 3 years, as many Friday nights as we could manage. I shouldn't, probably 30 sessions a year, but and I had a great time running a campaign and inventing the campaign. And I think the fact that I did design and run a campaign was a basic qualification that helped me get the job as a game designer at TSR.
Oh, no doubt. Absolutely. And, you, unlike a lot of others where I say, hey, maybe that was the wrong decision for me at the time. It sounds like you were extremely happy in the choices you made early on, where you.
Yeah, I was. It was. And my wife was very supportive too. She was actually pregnant with our first child, but she was Allison was born in August, and I got hired in January. So we just knew that we were going to have a child, and she was working as a social worker and I was working as a teacher. So neither of us had like big money jobs, but she was one of the players in my campaign from the get-go, and knew how much it meant.
Awesome. Yeah,
that's great.
So,
that's wonderful. So so she knew what you were getting into more than most other family members would have. Yeah, that's awesome. And then you kept it up, even if you didn't, as a freelancer. It's been your main career for decades. That's fantastic.
Still to this day, too. You still?
I'm retired. I do very little writing anymore.
Yeah.
So
I know some of the people that Ed. I don't know if Ed's I think younger than me, but
It's about the same.
Almost 70. Yeah,
He's
almost 70. I
I
think
think he's
so.
72.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
He's
So
more he's more engrossed in the hobby, and I'm got two grandchildren in Madison
Cool.
here, and yeah, I like my leisure time as my sports. I'm a big cheesehead sports fan, baseball, football.
Yeah,
That stuff.
love it all.
Do you still do some wargaming? Do you pick up
Yes.
put up? Okay, awesome. Yeah, because you kept that. That's interesting because you have the same intro into it as the hobby itself. You came from wargaming, so to
Yes.
speak.
And actually that is my preferred method of adventure gaming. I have
Mhm.
one of my first colleagues at TSR was a fellow named Mark Akers, who's made a name
Yep.
for himself. He was a designer. He designed gangbusters for, among other things, for TSR. And then when a group of the staff started to form the company Pace Setter, he was one of the founders of that. But we've stayed in touch through the years. And he was also avid wargamer. He taught me how to play Wellington, a big, Napoleonic battle with four big maps on it, and the thing that takes you half a year to play. But we played several games of it. And so anyway, he lives in Indiana right now, Bloomington, Indiana. But he also introduced me to this program that's out there called Vassal.
Yeah.
And so
It's a dream. What if we've had that back in
So
the
you can play
80s? Because-
Divine Right on it, right?
Yeah,
For
I mean,
example.
I would have stayed in
Yeah.
playing war
Yeah.
games
Right, you can
if
play-
that has
you
been
can play
around. Yeah.
regular board games, but
Yeah.
you can play the most elaborate war games you can imagine. We're playing a game on the Battle of Shiloh right now that we started in September of last year and ran it through to about the end of the year and decided we wanted to restart. So it's a game about a 2-day battle, but we started at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we were at about noon after 4 months of playing, and it's like, okay, well, Mark was playing the Confederates and was made some mistakes that he wanted to correct, so we restarted.
Just like Beauregard.
Right.
Like they didn't take Pittsburgh's Landing that first day.
That's right. Albert Sidney Johnson got killed.
Yep, absolutely. There was a great last year. There was a great one on the former president and and the grand. Oh God, my brain just shut off. So I'm getting old, and what he did there, him and Sherman, how they said, we're going to attack first thing in the morning. I don't care. We have to. Yeah, we have to attack there. It's such a that Shiloh was the biggest death amount of kills to that anywhere. I mean, it was like 22,000 or whatever, and everyone was shocked. I mean, that's cool that you're playing
in America.
In America.
In the European
first one.
The Napoleonic Wars and beyond. But yes, it was stunning. It was also it turned out to be a major Union victory, but it was at tremendous cost. Yep. And Grant, you're thinking of
Grant. Yeah, my brain is off. Yeah, U.S. Grant on that, and he said that we're attacking first thing in the morning, or we're not going to be here. We can't let them get their foothold. So what a great.
I think Sherman said the quote is pretty famous. He said something like, "They really knuckled. They gave us a beating today," and Grant just laconically said, "We'll lick them tomorrow, though."
Yep. Yeah.
And, he's become one of my favorite generals. I'm actually taking a trip with my brother in September. We're going to go to Fort Donelson.
Oh, cool.
In Tennessee, which is a well-preserved battle site where Grant actually won the first significant victory in the war in the West. And the war in the East didn't have any Union victories at that point.
None.
Over 12,000 soldiers, and he captured the fort and opened up the Cumberland and Tennessee rivers to Union passage. And then Shiloh was down the Tennessee River, Pittsburgh Landing, and his army was surprised and badly handled the first day, but he was really stubborn and came in and turned it around. So we're going from Fort Donelson to Shiloh to Pittsburgh Landing.
Oh, that is awesome.
A couple of days to see that battlefield too. So
back in the mid '80s, you could do this. You can't do it anymore. We camped out on Little Round Top over in the summer.
Really?
Yeah, because they got some of those buttons you press and they start talking. And the one guy who was going to Gettysburg College scared the crap out of us by doing that right in the middle of the night. But it was you can't do. They won't let you do that anymore. That was like I think '86. They were, back in the day.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. I went with Zeb Cook and Steve Winter are pretty well known guys in the industry that were colleagues at TSR. We took a road trip in the about '86 from Wisconsin. We drove all night and ended up like at a campground about half an hour away from Gettysburg, and we spent 2 days. And we were on Little Round Top. We wanted to find the markers where all the units made their significant contributions, and we were looking for the 20th Maine, which was made famous in the Killer Angels.
That's what we're talking about right now. Someone in chat is talking about. I know it's probably shocking coming from Maine, but my favorite general is Joshua Chamberlain. So,
Right.
yeah, of course, like one of the most important people ever to not become president, because he was like governor of Maine for decades, for a long time afterwards.
I think he was a colonel at Gettysburg. I don't think he was. He
was a colonel at Gettysburg. Then he became a general after that. Yeah, and then he got wounded like multiple times after that again and all. But then he went back to Bowdoin College, and then he was. Sorry, Anna, for talking going off on a tangent here.
It's great.
But then he was
just looking at the map so I can.
Yeah, governor of Maine for a long time. Yeah, he just never made.
He was a preacher, or a professor of divinity.
Yep.
When the war started, and he was appointed to a command. I don't know that he probably didn't start as a colonel, but
he was the second colonel when they did Fredericksburg. If you watch Gods and Generals, it'll explain that he's second in command at that point. Yeah. So, but it's some really great stuff. I live right near all the Revolutionary War stuff. I live right near the Battle of Red Bank, right here in South Jersey. I live right there. Literally, it's down the road. So, a lot of cool stuff here. So,
we took a road trip to Ticonderoga. My wife and I with a couple friends a year and a half ago. So that's the most Revolutionary War relevant site that I've toured. That's an impressive place.
Yeah, there's some really some great history just on the East Coast. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
So well, that's great that you got that little side gig. The wargaming never, for all of us, it was all Avalon Hill or whatever. Some of the other companies. I played Squad Leader like crazy when I was a kid.
We played a lot of game develop.
GW.
The Assault series. We played that a lot.
Tactics and Tactics 2. They were the basic ones. Yeah. But
SPI was a company. Was based in New York, but
I have War of the Ring box set right here. I have an unpunched version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We played some Top Secret too. I like Top Secret. It was fun mechanics and it was
I had an office a cubicle next to Merle Rasmussen for.
Yeah. I talked to Merle at Gen Con some years ago when he showed the new version of Top Secret came out and we test played it and stuff. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, he's usually at Gary Con too.
Hey, darling.
Oh yeah. I met him at Game Hole as well. So
he's from Iowa, so it's not that far to get to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But anyway, Merle's made his career on the espionage game.
Oh yeah. It's a fun and so I need to talk to him more about that.
Sword and Sorcery. That's that's a later printing. That's not the blue box one. And then Divine Right, pretty good shape.
Nice,
that one's in pretty good shape. I wish I had gotten that 25th anniversary big one back when it came out in like the 90s. I wish I had gotten that one. It was like $50 at that time because now it's gone for like $1,000. And then this is my baby. It's an unpunched War of the Ring.
Wow.
Yeah, SPI. Yeah. So, yeah. Love that game. So there was some.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I bought a copy of that Shiloh game that I'm playing on Vassal, just so I have the rule book and stuff like that. The big fat box, which I would show you, except right now it's propping up my laptop. So I'm
that's okay. Yeah, and just it's funny how that, just like Gary, it evolved from that to we want to play the individual players that are in those armies, and that's how D&D evolved, right?
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is. It is.
They started playing chainmail which was a miniatures set of rules
Yeah.
without any characterization involved, and they came up with, well, what if each of these characters had traits that were relevant to their abilities in first of all in battle, but they went on to become, what if they had lives? And that's very much.
There's a little bit of that in Divine Right and War of the Ring, because you have the cards for all the characters and you have some special leaders, but you don't have like that the really in depth, where they're going out on their own and fight, doing combat against dragons or whatever, or ogres or whatever. That's where the evolution came, and that's where, I mean, we're all just so, we're all better for it today, So here comes Blue Box in with a raid. So we got another raid coming in. So another channel is actually raiding into us. They're taking all their viewers and they're coming in and they're raiding into us there. So thanks a lot, man. It's good to see you, Rory. So a question on battle system. I know you wanted to get the nostalgia back of the large gaming in D&D. So do you think that they gave it enough a chance, and it just wasn't the direction everyone wanted, or what are your thoughts? Because
I think for one thing, mass battles were not hugely interesting to a lot of role players.
Right.
It is a different scale of gaming. They were really interesting to strategic war gamers, and including the miniatures players
splatted.
And then it didn't.
But it's so interesting because Games Workshop in the UK, they made a huge successful with Warhammer. Right. It was kind of interesting, and that was only a few years afterwards. So there was definitely a market. Why do you think TSR didn't manage to? But was it that this was too tied to D&D gamers that weren't that into it, or?
It might have been also those counters were not. They were not anywhere near as visually impressive as having miniatures.
Yeah, exactly. Really the collector side of it was not really.
I mean, Warhammer, obviously, there's all kinds of miniatures that are directly tied into Warhammer, and there weren't any for battle systems.
Right, until this came out. Came out.
The later editions, but that's when Warhammer was already a success.
No, by far.
TSR was, and then later Wizards trying to catch up on it. So
some great pictures.
Book with all those photographs in it. Jim Ward was my boss at the time, and I took a road trip to Cincinnati. Why can't I think of the name of the company? I'm not the name of the miniatures company. We went into their big studio and we set all those battles up. Did anybody else think of the
Ratham?
name? What's that?
Ratham. Was Ratham there? I know Ratham just closed. I thought they were in that central.
It was very. I'm embarrassed, but
it's okay.
We were.
Ralph Partha. Was it Partha? I don't think Partha was Partha there. Michael. It was Partha. Okay.
All right. And so we set up all of those battles according to plans we had brought, and they had all the stuff, and we had a professional photographer taking the shots, and Kim Mohan was the editor of that book. He didn't come along on that trip, but he also helped to incorporate he's a longtime editor of Dragon magazine. He helped to incorporate those photographs into telling the story. So that was they actually both won the Origins Award in separate years for the best miniatures rules of that year, but they didn't take off like Warhammer's the godfather of it all.
It's still, even though 3D printing's out and all, it's still a niche thing. Hardcore miniatures and terrain in play. I mean, I'm an exception. Most people are doing VTT or theater of mind, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, but to this day, it's that mini wargaming feel. I love it in D&D. I think it's. I just always love that feel to it. Yeah. So here's a question from the audience. This could be the last book you ever read, written by AAW Games. Was Survivalist Guide to Spelunking?
Oh, actually, I did like just a little bit of, I wrote the introduction for them. I think I wrote some fiction pieces that like a grumpy old dwarf commenting on, I created a character for that. So I didn't author the game rules. In fact, I said to them, I'm too far out of the business to get involved in designing game rules, but I'd be glad to do some narrative. So I tried to make them funny. Passages of this dwarf. He was a very boastful dwarf that as you hear him describing the things that he did, you realize that he's making it all up or, drastically expanding his own role, on how he was a heroic leader of a fight that everybody on his side ended up running away during the fight. And, things like like that.
Okay.
So that was fun, but it was definitely more like fiction writing than game design.
But you had, that was it was a nice run all the way through 2021, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
that was fun to work with those guys.
yeah, I have their Drow book, which is unbelievable.
Oh yeah, it's great. It first came out for Pathfinder, I think, and then it was a remake for 5e.
Yeah,
Adventure
I
Week.
just got
They
that
did
just because it's so
tons of
beautiful.
cool stuff. Yep.
It's so big, so and it was on a deal.
Yeah,
all right, I'm sorry, Doug. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, I just meant that I could tell by work. I didn't actually meet them face to face, but we corresponded a lot, and I could tell they had this passion for it. And
I
was really pleased to be able to, inject a little bit of like I said, storytelling color into what was a pretty cool set of rules.
Let's see what the audience has question-wise as I put that out there to them as well. Anna, do you have any other questions for Doug?
I was more thinking turnaround time, meaning when we do project, one of my big caveat is that they want stuff so quickly, and my mapping projects are usually a year or longer. So that's one of the things. How often, when you wrote a module, and also novels is often a different beast from modules I take. But what would the turnaround time? Meaning, were we talking months, years for projects? Did they percolate in the background and then came to be? Okay.
Typically in a module writing, a novel writing you'd have an initial deadline.
Yeah.
And I turn a draft into the editor and get a fairly extensive critique back.
Mm-hmm. Is that like a chapter by chapter and a little summary of
page by page sometimes?
Okay, wow.
And so there'd be maybe 3 months of rewrite time allowed, and then once you turn the final draft in, they would give it to the book editor, and then it would go to a copy editor.
Yeah.
Copy editors are a dying breed now because there's so much AI and publishing. They're expensive, but they were a very important step of every novel I wrote, which were all back in the day. But the copy editor would go over it. You as the writer would get what they would call the galleys, or nowadays would be PDFs. Pictures of the pages laid out as they were going to appear in print.
So you got a chance to react to the edits that were made, so to speak, before they went into print, or
yes, but
that's good.
But changes were expensive, so you didn't want to say, "Oh no, cancel this chapter. I want to write a new chapter here."
No,
but it's like, "Oh, I don't like the way this sentence." You could change a few words here and there, and if you were judicious. They would do it happily, and they'd do it unhappily if you made too many changes. They're supposed to basically be, the galleys are basically almost ready to go to print. You couldn't do anything that was going to change the page, like to add
exactly. The layout was once it's gone into layout, it becomes sacrosanct, and don't change any length of things. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So and that process. So I'm thinking of when I turn over what I would call my final draft, this is before editing and before the galleys.
Yeah.
Book would be out within about 9 months from that, I'd say.
Okay. And that could have been months of work for you or.
And I was usually working, I kind of surprised myself. I looked at my list of books that I wrote in the 90s, and I was writing 2.5 novels a year in the 90s.
Wow. That is amazing.
That's a lot.
So, I don't know how, but I just did that by comparing the dates that they were published, and I knew when I was writing them. And so in the course of the 90s, I wrote about 25 novels, and so I was really productive at the peak of my career, and that waned off by the turn of the century. I wasn't getting that much work, and I was slowing down. I think that happens to everybody.
Was it because of Wizards, or was it just because? You had the
Wizards actually. I mean, Peter Atkinson was the White Knight, and my career and Margaret and Tracy and a lot of writers who were working for TSR. We went, I don't want to go into the whole soap opera, but the Gary and the Bloom brothers sold the company to Lorraine Williams in the late 80s, and so she brought enough money to the table to keep the company going for a while. But then she was not making the kind of money she wanted to. And it got to the point where in about the mid 90s, They stopped paying royalties. I was working on a book and was starting to hear from other writers that I knew that you turn this book over and you're supposed to get a third of your check, a third of your advance when you sign the contract, a third when you turn over the first draft of the book, and
Yeah.
the final third when you turn over the final book. So by the time I was working on the final book, they were not paying anybody's royalties, which I also was at the time, and they're still paid quarterly. So they were like half a year behind, and that was my full-time job. And when Peter and the Wizards bought TSR, and I don't know the exact year, but it was mid 90s.
97, I think it was.
That's
So, yeah,
right, yes.
I think so.
Sounds
Yeah.
about right.
Everybody got paid. Everything.
Wow.
It was like, yeah, we owe that guy a lot. He was
Yeah.
he was the classic white knight, you hear in
That's good to hear.
business.
Yeah.
Yep. So then I resumed, and I at that point was basically just doing Dragonlance. Although I also did a couple of trilogies for Ace Fantasy that were
Yeah, because Wizards published a lot of the backlog that has been jammed up, and
Yes.
yeah, so it was published under Wizard of the Coast.
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah.
All the way through. I believe my last Dragonlance novel was about 2010.
Okay. Wow.
At that time, I was writing about one novel a year.
Yeah.
And we don't know. Margaret Weiss doesn't even know. She lives not that far from. I see her, off and on, but she doesn't know why Wizards decided to stop publishing Dragonlance novels, because each one sold at least 40,000 copies. They were not.
Yeah.
But anyway, they dropped the novel line. So that was kind of like prodding me towards retirement. I've done some other, smaller projects since then, but and I don't know why they decided. And but nobody that I know
It's a
of.
bit a mystery. Yeah.
And then they brought it back and didn't even include them, right?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Really
They have all these
Patrick,
fantastic IPs, intellectual property, meaning TSR and Wizard. They are sitting on a gold mine of that, but they barely even touch it. And yeah.
Well,
They, like you say, intellectual property. They own the Dragonlance name.
Yeah.
Is owned by Wizards, because TSR owned it, and so it's not Tracy and Margaret's, even though.
No, exactly. And Wizards are sitting on this, but hopefully maybe they can do something cool with it in the future. We'll see. Yeah.
I know that Margaret has mentioned that they're doing an omnibus, which is works that have already been published under I think they're grouping a series of books together, and that's going to be coming out later this. I think they're going to release it at Gen Con this year. So there's
okay.
Yep.
Dragonlance project.
Yeah, and there's talks of TV shows and movies and stuff, because that's where I also think that Dragonlance material and stuff will be super cool.
Well, they do have the one. They do have the one cartoon movie out.
Yeah, that was And then I thought the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
I liked it.
It was a good movie, definitely. But I don't want to see a movie about a rule system. I want to see a movie about a setting with the stories and stuff, not the rule system.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I want to see a Forgotten Realms, Epos, Dragonlance, all that other stuff. I want to see Restored and TV series and stuff like that. That's where I think the bread and butter of storytelling should be the stories, not the rule system.
Yeah, well, totally. I agree. Yeah, the same thing should be when you're writing a novel in a game world. I remember some wise editor said, you don't want to hear dice rolling in the background when you're
exactly.
A battle or any kind of encounter in a book that would be mirrored in a role-playing game. You want to make sure it doesn't sound like a game.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's interesting. Was there any kind of guardrails when it came to that? Do you have to name spells and stuff in books, or how did that work, so to speak?
I mean, if it's a magic missile spell from the rules and you use it in a book, that's quite allowed, and it would be a magic missile. I know that there was a kind of a funny thing. We had a legal department that, all the intellectuals were getting to be really, really, really determined to protect the trademarks. And so there was a time when Dragonlance was just being put into books where they said the only way you can use the word Dragonlance is to use it as an adjective, which is how, that's why in a TV commercial you might hear, Kleenex brand nasal tissue. The Kleenex is an adjective of the word brand. And so they were It would have been quite comical. Like, I'm going to use my Dragonlance brand reptile slaying weapon to kill this serpent, but they dropped that. You were allowed to call it a Dragonlance.
That would have been too cheesy in a fantasy.
Weren't they going after the ALL boards on Greyhawk in the 90s? That's what I heard. They were going after the Greyhawk boards, weren't they?
Oh God, yeah. TSR was the nickname was they sue. What was it? TSR. They sue regularly was the acronym for TSR for some years.
They definitely making life difficult for. I know, like Mayfair was a company in Chicago that was doing adventures that they weren't called D&D adventures, but they were made to be played with D&D rules, and that was kind of a legal fracas around that.
Oh yeah, and if you there was even a time around in the late 90s when just before they folded, and before they were bought up by Wizards, and even early days of Wizards, but especially late TSR, when if you had a blog talking about your game on the internet and you had a website, you could get sued or get a cease and desist, because if you even mention any of that stuff, so to speak. And people asked me, because I had one of these for my maps and stuff, and say, did you get sued? And I say, well, it was based in Sweden, so it was a little bit more difficult for them, more expensive to sue me over there, so to speak. So that's why I could fly under the radar. But it was in English, of course. But it was kind of funny that way. So that didn't happen to me. But I knew other people got cease and desist sent to them in that time. They went after. They tried to get everything off the internet. That was D&D, which is kind of weird, because later when Wizard came on, then it was turned 180. They wanted you to blog about your games and stuff, because that sold more products. And social media and all that came out. But 10 years before social media and stuff, they wanted to have nothing on the internet at all. So
they didn't understand it at that time,
No, but no one understood any of it.
Even before the internet. I mean, everybody knows the movie E.T., right? Steven Spielberg's movie. Well, they remember that kids are playing D&D at the beginning of the movie, and they wanted to actually have like the Dungeon Master screen up there and the books, and TSR, no, you can't put those in your movie. So
that's ridiculous. It's like meaning a lot of companies pay money to have their products placed in movies.
Silly.
So they should be proud.
The other thing was that I think they ended up using Skittles as little candies to lure the creature, and they wanted to use M&Ms.
Reese's Pieces.
But Reese's Pieces. Yeah. But Mars said you can't use M&Ms in your movies.
Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah, that's weird.
Some executives regret those decisions.
I'd say so.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
All right. Here's a question: what's your go-to system to DM when you're playing?
Yeah.
Second edition, AD&D second edition.
Beautiful.
Okay.
I'm a 1E2E guy myself, so
I played 5E at a convention a couple times, and it's an amazing system. But again, there's just more to learn that I really want to invest my time learning. So I'm going back to like the adventure I wrote for Gary Kahn, and we'll be doing so parts 2 and parts 3. That's AD&D second edition basic. But I'm also pretty flexible. Like I had a halfling character who wanted to. He said, "Well, I'm play 5e, and I like using tumbling." And I said, "Okay, fine. You can that you can do. It doesn't going to change the adventure much." And he did some cool tumbling things during various encounters. It also reminds me, even before TSR got all lawyered up, the Tolkien, because they were originally hobbits in the
and Ents.
Snack down really hard about that.
Yeah, soon they can be called hobbits again in not so many long time in the future, because then the copyright will fall on the Lord.
The word halfling does appear in the Lord of the Rings books, by the way, too.
It does, yes.
It does.
Oh, okay, yeah. But I guess halfling is probably generic.
It was a generic term for a hobbit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But hobbit will be in public domain in the not too long.
It probably is by now, Anna.
No, it's not yet, but it will be soon. I saw a website that kept track of it and said that Wizards can start using Hobbit in this not too distant future.
I don't know what the time for Tarzan, for example, is another trademark that's zealously protected Edgar Rice Burroughs estate, and I wonder when that
Yeah.
going to
But
publish.
it's also different because originally Lord of the Rings is published in the UK, and so that's UK laws, but it's
Right.
also published in America. And the interesting thing, the first publication of the Lord of the Rings in America was an illegal publication.
Oh, really?
And that was it was published illegally first, and then
Did not know that.
withdrawn, and then published. Yeah, it was a like a purple or pink or some other cover that was illegally published in the
I
US.
thought it was 50. Maybe it's not.
and
It's
then
copyright
yeah,
early done.
yeah.
Sam Weiss is the copyright Tarzan, early Tarzan.
32. Yeah.
John Carter has expired. So Google says Hobbits will be public domain in 2032.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yep.
Very cool.
So it's yep. So then they can be hobbits again.
100 years in that, I guess, huh?
75, I think.
There is a
maybe it is
Middle
100.
Earth 5e. That is a Middle Earth 5e version that was published. I forgot if it was Free League or someone under license from the
Right, and then they can use
Tolkien
hobbits.
estate. So there is now a D&D version with hobbits and all that is licensed. So it's
natural-
officially
a
there
natural
already
land.
in a way. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so let's finish up with some couple quick questions for Doug here. We don't want to keep him all night, you know. We're having look. It's almost 2 hours have passed already. I knew time would fly by on this discussion. This is awesome.
It's been really enjoyable. Yeah, it's getting near my bedtime.
Yep. So last call, and then we'll wrap this up.
Okay.
It's quiet, so everyone knows you're not.
We'll
So-
see. Yep.
So wrap up your 30, 40-year career in a nutshell, Doug. What do you think?
It's been a really, really nice ride. I got a chance to do more. I have a body of work that I never would have imagined was out there and for publication. I got a chance to do some of the I mentioned briefly. I think my World War II European Theater of Operations game. That I got a chance to sign the game that I always wanted to play, and it's on Vassal, and I still like Mark Akers in Indiana. He and I have played that on Vassal a few times, and that's a game that I've often said, you know, if I have one product put on my tombstone after I died, I'd like it to be ETO. I had a chance to do some alternate history. My writing partner Michael Dobson from the Bloodstone Pass series, we did several alternate histories set during the World War II. The first one, and I think the best one, was called Fox on the Rhine. And we started the book with a very accurate recounting of the July 20th bomb plot in to kill Hitler, except that in our book we make one little change where the briefcase with the bomb doesn't get moved out of the way and it blows up and kills Hitler. So
Wow. Okay.
Chapter 1, Hitler's dead, and then we had a chance to, you know, it's like dropping one little pebble into a smooth pool and following the ripples, and we made a fairly it was a pretty successful book. It was published in hardcover, and then it by Tor, and also then in paperback after that, and that was really fun. It was like after all of my characters who'd been flyers up to that point had either been doing it with a magic spell or riding in the saddle on a dragon. And here I had characters in P-51s and the Messerschmitt, the 262 jet, you know, so I was actually writing about real stuff. And that was something that kind of back when I was a teenager, what I kind of dreamed about doing. And in fact, I have a one project that I might get around to finishing, and it's an alternate history about the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh wow, that sounds cool.
Oh, cool. Yeah, you should. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I have a novella about a 200 page book that I wrote in 2012 when the 50th anniversary of the missile crisis, that a friend of mine published, a little popcorn press. It's available on Amazon. It's called Eyeball to Eyeball. And it's about the first fifth of what this novel would turn out to be. So I'm kind of thinking I'd like to get back, and if I can focus myself and really start to sit down and you know spend a few hours every day writing, I might be able to finish it. It would end up being an epic novel with some more disastrous outcomes than I'm not planning to make it an apocalyptic, you know, end of the world novel, but it's definitely going to have have some more explosions than the real Cuban Missile Crisis had, and that's something that I've got in the back of my mind. When I had to shrink my library when I moved to the smaller house here, and I gave away a lot of Civil War books, a lot of World War II books, but I have one shelf of my bookshelf over there that's all books related to the Cuban Missile Crisis, because I kept them thinking that maybe I will get back to do that. So, that's something still in front of me, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's cool.
Hey, I always go back to the war gaming. My son and I are now getting into the World of Tanks board game. With the miniatures and stuff. Yeah. Instead of doing it online, playing that. No, he started playing at Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo last year. So yeah, we're getting back into that. So he's 15.
My grandson got a game of Stratego. We played that a couple times, and we just for his 10th birthday we gave him Risk. So we haven't had a chance to play it yet.
Beautiful. Great games.
Really nice introductory war games.
Yeah, Stratego is awesome too. It's a really good game for how old it is. Absolutely. So, well, we thank you so very much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Anna, this is it's been a really nice conversation, and nice to reminisce with you guys and.
And we need to sit down and babble some more and continue at Game Hall.
Yes,
coming up. So
I have your contact info. I don't know if I have yours, but I know I have Jay's.
So and I'm going to be reaching out to Ron at Page and have him reach out to you. Okay, and just see.
And I have Jay send my
I will.
Contact info.
I'll send it there too, and then also.
You'll be visiting my hometown, so maybe we could go out to dinner or something like that.
There you go. Fantastic. Also,
awesome.
If you're interested down the road. I always put special guests into the Ed game. If you want to hop on for a session, play with Ed Greenwood in my Greyhawk campaign, you're more than welcome to.
All right. Well, thanks. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to do some shout outs here and stuff, stuff that you don't need to worry about there, Doug, so to bore you with. So I really appreciate you coming on. And let's keep in touch. Thank you for everything. I know Curtis and Brett we'll all look forward to seeing you at upcoming cons. And, and just.
And Josh, we'll look forward
where's the world without Josh Pop, without Zarathon?
He's the nucleus that holds all the web together.
Yeah, that's a nice way of saying it there, Doug. That's really, I'm just kidding. We all love Josh here. He's probably lurking right now in chat. Let me see. I don't see him. Maybe he's not on. He was on, though. But, yeah, thank you so very much. So let's do a couple quick shout-outs, and we'll get out of here. We're rating the Darling Creep Show tonight. Doug, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you for coming on. And
thanks a lot. Yeah, I was kidding about it being my bedtime. It's only 8 o'clock in the Midwest.
Yep. Awesome.
I'll sign off. And again, I appreciate very much having the chance to do this.
Oh, thank you. And we'll chat soon. And have a great night.
Yep.
All right. Appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.
So Anna, we got what's going on with you this week?
Well, I could just post a link to my Patreon. I posted an update on my new generation Greyhawk maps. It's kind of a technical little rant about that going. There will be another update, hopefully a series of updates on Hawktails coming out. I'm writing a series on the rules because there is a bunch of stuff, and there will also be a more heraldry coming. That's the next couple of things in the making here. So yeah.
Well, that was quick. And then you're on Friday night too. You're on Friday.
Yes, I'm on Friday night too, and yeah. So yeah, definitely.
All right. So here, let me bring mine up real quick. See if I hit a wrong button right off the start. So, Rick can't make this, but we're still doing this because this book is so big, and we'll probably go over other publications and stuff. Unique magic items for Greyhawk on Wednesday night.
It's so cool.
Yeah, and that and we won't go verbatim out of Rick's book, but we will refer to it for the new reference for fifth edition.
That will be 10 Legends and Lore.
Exactly. And we talked. Yeah, there it is.
We present it what it is, and let Rick present his cool.
We'll have Rick on a Gabbin, which he can make a lot more easily on a Sunday night. But my Gabbins are all stacked for the next 3 weeks, so we'll have Rick come on for that. So that's unique magic items of Greyhawk. Now, also, I don't know when it's going to be, but my son and I are going to stream us playing World of Tanks soon. It will be on the table with measures of terrain.
Cool. Yeah.
He knows a lot more than me. He'll kick my ass, but we're going to do that. I don't know if it's going to be this upcoming Tuesday, but we're going to do it. All right. And so if we have a Thursday night where we're not playing a D&D game and I can't, then we may do it on Thursday as well down the road, just so you're aware, just to change it up a little bit there, and maybe we'll add some people in as we go. All right. So, and then we're supposed to continue this. Hopefully we do. This is the super high level on Thursday Halls of Littlest Shabbath. We took the last week off from playing this, but that, high level, even Gazumba's in this adventure. So that's Thursday. Saturday, I'm close to a name on it, but low level Champions of Avon are coming up at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Cord, Coco, Timothy, and Star. Maybe a guest or two beyond that, but that's the core group. And then next Sunday, Ed's back for a really deep discussion. There Be Dragons, introducing the elements beyond the campaign focus. I'm just going to let Ed talk. And I'll just sit back and listen. I think that'll be the good one on that. And that's next Sunday. And then I have two brand new streamers. The week after, we're going to have a session 0 the day after on June 9th for them, and then they're going to play in the Saturday after that on what would be the 14th. And so we got some more new people to the community coming that are actual streamers. So lots of cool things going on. And then then lastly, this is it's out there. Curtis mentioned it, but on my 24-hour stream. 24 hours of Baltron's Beacon starting at 10 a.m. at Saturday, July 5th. This is the core group of 5 players. I'm going to rotate in 1 to 2 characters every 6 to 8 hours or 4, whatever, at a natural occurring stop point. So right now, Mark and Rachel from Marquee Gaming are going to join them right at the beginning. Around 6 p.m. that night, Darling Creepshow and Ed Greenwood are going to hop in. All right, so we're going to have it'll be a cool 24 hours of Fritz. We'll go till we finish. It could be less than 24 hours. It could be more. I don't know. But we're going to run it, I'm starting in the morning. Starting it at night was a mistake last time because the middle of the night was, if I am in the middle of the night and we're finishing up, it's a little different than middle of the night trying to figure out what we're doing. So, that'll be fun coming up, and that's down the road, July 5th.
Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm in a Guild Superior game on Tuesday.
Oh, cool.
Yep, they have a Greyhawk game. I think we're going to use CNC rules this time, if I remember.
Oh,
correctly.
CNC? Okay, not Shadow Dark.
Yeah, we're going to have a session 0 tonight, just after this.
Oh, cool.
So, yep.
Excellent.
Yep.
All right, so last call, exclamation point drawing to get in. Now, if you do not have a Cult of the Reptile God, that's what you're getting, at least, at minimum. And then I don't have B5 or X3, unfortunately, or I give you that. But I do have X12 here. I don't know who did X12. Who did X12? That's Aaron here. So right now we're going to do N1 and X12. All right, that's a giveaway tonight. And if you have them, then we'll change it up. All right. Alrighty, here we go. Last call. If you want to get in, I'm going to close it out and see who wins. And then we're going to rate into Darling. So sit tight, please. Here comes the winner. Baker. That's some Bakery Esquire. Baker, you're in. Congrats. Very cool. Make sure. I think he's on.
Awesome.
He's in. He's on. All right. Excellent. So, at least 4 streams this upcoming week. Enjoy, everyone. Thank you all for the support. I'm going to stuff in as much content as I can before my last, hopefully, major surgery, which is August 12th. And that's a Tuesday. And then we'll see. Hopefully, things go well from there. So, got good news on the blood work to post-cancer surgery. So far, so good. All right.
Good,
so, just
good,
note
good.
that.
Yep.
All right. So, things are going okay. Getting better every day. And you're welcome. Thank you all. It was great. Thank you, Brett, especially Brett and Curtis, who hopped on and also helped me make sure I made the connection with Doug again this year to set this up, because we really wanted this to happen. So, Doug was one of the key ones we've never had on. We really wanted to get him going here. So it was great to see. And thank you all for the support. I will see you all Wednesday night, and everyone enjoy themselves. Have a good rest of the weekend, and we'll see you soon. Good night, Anna. Thank you.
Yep,
Boom, I hit the wrong button.
Good night.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying, Brett, to stay healthy, man. I'm doing everything, it's, life throws a lot of curveballs, but so far so good. Let me go here, set the rate up. Love to get over 90. I know a lot of people may already be over there too, so maybe duplicate viewers. All right, we're up there. I'll take 84. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See you Wednesday. Have a good one.
Yeah, 86.
Yep.
That's good.
All right.